Matthew Bennett. So we've been talking about Sambandha Gyan, and I wanted to talk about the Mahabhutas. There are 5 great elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And these are called the Mahabhutas. Now, there are 3 subtle elements also: mind, intelligence, and ego. And within the category of mind, we have manas, chitta, and buddha, or buddhi. And the manas and chitta are the individual consciousness, the collective consciousness, and then we have the buddhi, or Buddha nature, that is the fire of intelligence. And the fire of intelligence is what digests our sensory experiences. Sometimes we see in Ayurveda that people become depressed. And one factor in that is tamo gun is a big factor. But another factor that often contributes to this is sensory overload. And we're all subject to this these days because we have the media, we have the internet, we're watching movies and listening to music. It's very difficult to go anywhere where there isn't some sound vibration of some kind. And most of those sound vibrations are rajarshik and tamasic. So our minds, they become burdened by all of these sense impressions, and we need to process them through intelligence and digest them. So these 5 main Mahabhuta elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether, just to retrace, and then the subtle elements of mind, intelligence, and ego. And this last factor, ego, is also known as ahankar. Now, ahankar is the point where our consciousness identifies with matter, the biological organism, and the mental and emotional states. It's what links us to our physical experience here on earth, the ahankar. Now, it's also called false ego or false identification. In the Gita, there's a progression, a very nice progression. Indriyani paranyahur indra yabaya param manaha manasas tu parabadhiryo buddhetas paratas tu saha. The working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses, and the intelligence is higher than the mind. And the self, the transcendent conscious self, is even higher than the intelligence. Now, the transcendent conscious self, that is what projects upon matter and causes the identification. Now, if you take all these factors together, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, mind, intelligence, and ego, or chitta, manas, and buddhi, the mind, subconscious, and intelligence. And that last factor, ego or ahankar, that is the linking factor between our consciousness and the biological organism, or our identification with matter. So ahankar is also called false ego. It's our mental representation of ourself that causes us to be identified with the joys and sorrows of this material existence. Now, we are inherently Sat Chit Ananda. Our nature is unassailable existence, wisdom, and bliss, ultimately. These 3 factors, Sat, Chit, Ananda. This is the nature of who we are in reality. Now, that consciousness which pervades the body, avinashi tutad vidiyena sarvamidam tata, that which pervades the entire body is conscious awareness. We're aware that we're aware. This is our underlying conscious principle which projects itself upon these Mahabhutas, or categories of energy modalities, and causes the rise of the physical organism, the mental states, the emotions. All these factors taken together bring about our experience. When we begin to understand all these different categories and our identifications with the material modalities, we can begin to separate ourselves through detachment, through Dharma-buddhi, that awakened fire of intelligence, And we can begin to withdraw ourselves from the identifications that bring about sorrow and unhappiness in our life. For as I said, we are conscious, spiritual, unending beings of eternal conscious light. This is the nature of our existence. We have our existence in consciousness, not in matter. So neo-Darwinian evolution gives us the idea that consciousness has evolved out of matter, which is completely false and backwards. Matter itself is an object of consciousness. It's an idea within consciousness. As Bishop Berkeley said, the world is in the mind. So what we're experiencing is being produced by our conscious mental states. And when we purify our consciousness, we're able to withdraw it from the identification with matter. Now, this is wonderful because this leads us to back to this idea of absolute abundance. Because when we have an expanded idea of who we are, we can really achieve much more in life with that understanding of ourselves and the possibility of that understanding of ourselves and what life is about. Life is about joy and happiness and love and sharing and giving. By giving of ourselves to others, to divinity, to dedicating ourselves to the welfare of others, we actually achieve greater happiness within our own life. It's not about getting more for yourself, but participating in the wonderful experience of sharing this life with others. So by withdrawing our identification with matter, matter loses its grip. We become less inclined to be greedy for material attachments and acquisitions, and more inclined to play with life and to enjoy life and to serve life and to honor life, not to destroy life, ours or other living beings. We become more peaceful, compassionate, kind, and loving. And when we do this, the quality of our life improves. Thank you so much for listening.